Captain Lee Minho pressed his face against the cold metal of the observation window. The red sun of Kepler 442b was setting again, just like it had every day for the past 3 years. But today felt different. Today felt like the end of something. He turned away from the window and walked through the narrow corridors of Mining Station Omega 7. The station was supposed to house 500 workers, but now only 32 humans remained. The rest had been taken away by their alien protectors for what they called better opportunities. Minho knew better. They all did. Lieutenant Park Ji-won was waiting for him in the communications room. Her young face looked tired, but her eyes still burned with anger. She had been one of the lucky ones, born after the aliens came, so she never knew what real freedom felt like. But somehow, she understood what they had lost better than most. "Sir, I have bad news," she said quietly. Colony 7 stopped responding this morning. That makes 12 colonies this month. Minho felt his chest tighten. Colony 7 had 8,000 people, men, women, children, all gone without a trace. The Galactic Union would say they were moved to better worlds, given better lives. The truth was much darker. "Any word from the other stations?" he asked. "Station Beta 3 reports strange ships in their system. Station Gamma 12 says their food supplies were cut in half again. And sir," she paused, her voice dropping to a whisper, "I intercepted a Union transmission. They mentioned something called Project Clean Slate." Minho's blood ran cold. He had heard whispers of that name before in the darkest corners of the Resistance Network. Project Clean Slate was supposed to be the final solution to what the aliens called the human problem. 50 years ago, humanity had celebrated when the great ships came from the stars. The Galactic Union arrived with promises of peace, prosperity, and a place among the cosmic community. Earth's leaders had signed treaties with joy in their hearts. Finally, humanity would join the galaxy's advanced civilizations. But the promises were lies wrapped in beautiful words. At first, the changes seemed reasonable. Humans were moved to safer worlds where the Union could protect them better. Earth's resources were managed by alien experts who knew better how to use them. Human children received education from advanced alien teachers who could prepare them for their cosmic future. Within 10 years, Earth was empty of humans. Within 20 years, human colonies were scattered across dozens of worlds, always under Union supervision. Within 30 years, human birth rates began dropping mysteriously. The Union doctors said it was natural adjustment to new environments. By the 40th year, some humans began to understand the truth. They were not being integrated into galactic society. They were being slowly erased from existence. The resistance began in secret. Groups of humans on different worlds started asking dangerous questions. Why were their numbers always getting smaller? Why were their brightest minds always selected for special programs and never seen again? Why did Union medical checkups always leave people feeling weak and strange? Minho had been a cargo pilot when he first learned the truth. He had delivered supplies to a Union research facility and saw something he was not supposed to see. Humans in glass tubes connected to strange machines, their life being slowly drained away. The aliens were harvesting something from human bodies and minds, something precious that only humans possessed. He had tried to report what he saw, but Union authorities dismissed his claims as stress and confusion. That night, he packed what he could carry and disappeared into the vast network of abandoned mining stations and forgotten outposts, where the resistance was slowly growing. Now, 3 years later, he commanded one of the last free human cells in this sector of space. They survived by staying hidden, by scavenging supplies, and by maintaining secret communications with other resistance groups across the galaxy. Engineer Kim Daeun entered the communications room carrying a bundle of cables and electronic parts. She was young, maybe 25, but she had a gift for understanding alien technology. More importantly, she had learned to modify it in ways the aliens never expected. "Captain, I think I can boost our signal range," she said excitedly. "There are resistance cells on at least 6 other worlds trying to reach us. If we can connect our networks, we might be able to coordinate something bigger." "How much bigger?" Minho asked. "Big enough to make them notice us. big enough to make them worried. Through the station's walls, they could hear the deep rumble of Union patrol ships passing overhead. The aliens maintained regular patrols of all human settlements, always watching, always controlling. But lately, the patrols had been getting more frequent, more urgent. Something was changing. Something was making the Union nervous. Ji-won looked up from her monitoring equipment. "Sir, I'm picking up encrypted signals from Proxima Station and Titan Base. They're trying to tell us something important." Minho felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest. For too long, the resistance had been scattered fragments fighting alone, in the darkness. But if they could unite, if they could work together, maybe they could become something the Union had never expected. Maybe they could become dangerous. Outside the station, the alien sun finished setting, and the stars appeared, in the black sky. Somewhere among those stars, humanity's children were preparing for war. The galaxy thought it had buried them in silence and submission, but humanity had always been full of surprises. The quantum communicator hummed to life in the abandoned cargo bay of mining station Omega-7. Blue light flickered across the metal walls as voices from across the galaxy began to break through the static. Captain Lee Minho held his breath as the first clear transmission came through. "This is Commander Oh Soo-yeon from Titan Base. Can anyone hear me?" Lieutenant Park Ji-won quickly adjusted the controls. "We hear you, Titan Base. This is Station Omega-7. How many survivors do you have?" 63 and counting. We found an old weapons cache hidden in the asteroid belt. The previous generation was smarter than we thought." More voices joined the conversation. From Proxima Station, Yoon Tae-hyung reported 47 survivors and access to pre-Union technology. From the research facility on Gliese, Dr. Choi Min-jae shared discoveries that made everyone's blood run cold. "They're not just killing us slowly." Dr. Choi's voice crackled through the speakers. "They're harvesting something from our bodies, something in our genes that they need." Engineer Kim Dae-in leaned closer to the communicator. "What kind of harvesting?" "I've been studying the medical procedures they perform on captured humans. They're extracting neural patterns and genetic material. But here's the strange part. The humans they keep in their labs are developing abilities, things that should be impossible." Captain Minho felt his heart race. "What kind of abilities?" "Quantum manipulation, direct interface with technology. Some can even communicate without speaking, like they're connected to each other somehow. Whatever the Union is doing to us, it's awakening something they don't understand." On Titan Base, Commander Oh Soo-yeon gathered her team around a stolen Union datapad. The information they had collected over months of careful spying painted a terrifying picture. Humans weren't just another species to the Galactic Union. They were special in a way that made them both valuable and dangerous. "Look at this," she said, pointing to genetic analysis charts on the screen. "Humans have unique neural pathways that allow direct quantum interaction. The Union has been using us as living computers to power their technology." Her second-in-command, Sergeant Han Ji-hoon, studied the data carefully. "So they keep us ignorant while using our brains to run their empire?" "Exactly, but they made a mistake. They assumed we would never figure it out." Back on mining station Omega-7, Dr. Choi's voice continued through the quantum link. "I've been analyzing the genetic modifications they're performing. They're not trying to weaken us, they're trying to control abilities that are already inside us. Abilities that evolution gave us naturally." Kim Dae-eun looked up from her workstation. "That explains why their technology responds so well when I modify it. I always thought I was just good with electronics, but maybe there's more to it." "Try something for me," Dr. Choi said. "Place your hand on the communicator and try to boost the signal just by thinking about it." Kim Dae-eun hesitated, then placed her palm on the quantum device. She closed her eyes and imagined the signal growing stronger, reaching farther across the void. Suddenly, the communicator's power readings spiked, and new voices began joining their network. "This is incredible," whispered Lieutenant Ji-won. "How? Many of us can do this?" "Probably all of us to some degree," Dr. Choi replied. "The Union has been suppressing our natural abilities with drugs in our food and water, but in the hidden colonies and resistance cells, where we've been living off scraps and stolen supplies, those suppressants are wearing off." Across the galaxy, Similar experiments were taking place. On Proxima Station, Yoon Tae-hyung discovered he could sense electronic devices through walls. On a hidden base in the Centauri system, a group of human children found they could share thoughts and feelings without speaking. But the awakening abilities came with terrible knowledge. The resistance cells had been digging through Union archives and discovering the truth about galactic history. The Galactic Union had done this before, many times. Species after species had been integrated into their system, only to disappear, quietly over the following decades. The Zephyrians had been a proud warrior culture until the Union gave them peace and protection. Within 50 years, they were extinct. The Altarians had been master engineers until the Union modernized their society. They vanished within a generation. The pattern was always the same: integration, dependency, harvest, extinction. Commander, Suyon's voice cut through the chatter on the quantum network. Everyone listen carefully. We found evidence of something big. The Union is planning what they call Project Clean Slate, complete elimination of all human populations within the next 6 months. Silence fell across the communication network. Finally, Captain Minho spoke. Then we don't have much time. No, we don't. But we have something they never expected us to have. We have each other, and we're starting to understand what we're really capable of. Dr. Choi's voice joined in. I've been in contact with other species in Union space. Some of them are starting to ask questions too. The Thetari remember stories. Their grandparents told about life before the Union. The Velnathi have been having strange dreams about their lost homeworld. You mean other species might help us? Asked Jiwon. Maybe. If we can show them the truth about what the Union really is. As the quantum network expanded and more resistance cells joined the conversation, humanity began to understand the scope of their situation. They weren't just fighting for their own survival. They were potentially the key to freeing every enslaved species in the galaxy. The Union had planted seeds of rebellion without realizing it. They had scattered humanity across the stars, awakened their hidden abilities, and given them reason to unite against a common enemy. The seeds were growing in the void, and soon they would bloom into something the galaxy had never seen before. The attack on Harvesting Station Alpha began in the deepest part of the night cycle. Captain Lee Minho led his team through the ventilation shafts, moving like shadows through the alien facility. They had been planning this mission for weeks, but nothing could have prepared them for what they would find inside. Lieutenant Park Jiwon crawled behind him, her heart pounding as they approached the main laboratory section. Through the metal grating, they could see rows upon rows of glass, containers filled with glowing blue liquid. Inside each container floated a human body, connected to cables and machines by dozens of wires. My God, whispered engineer Kim Daeun. There must be thousands of them. Minho felt sick as he recognized some of the faces. People from Colony 7, workers from Mining Station Beta 3, children who had been taken for special education programs, all of them floating unconsciously while alien machines slowly drained something from their minds. They dropped down into the laboratory and began searching for controls. The alien writing on the machines made no sense, but Kim Daeun had learned to understand Union technology better than most humans. She began working on what looked like the main computer system. I can't figure out how to wake them up safely, she said, frustration clear in her voice. The system is too complex. If I make a mistake, I might kill them all. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed as Union security forces detected their presence. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as alien guards rushed toward the laboratory. We're trapped, said Jiwon, checking her weapon. The exits are sealed. But as the security doors slammed shut around them, something unexpected happened. Deep within the facility's computer systems, an ancient program began to activate. It was human technology, built and hidden decades ago by the scientists who had first made contact with the Union. The program was a failsafe, designed to activate if humans were ever in mortal danger from their alien allies. It had been waiting, patiently for 50 years, watching and learning, preparing for this moment. Emergency protocols began executing automatically. The glass containers started opening one by one, draining their blue liquid onto the laboratory floor. But more importantly, the harvested neural patterns and genetic information began downloading back into nearby humans. Minho felt it first, a burning sensation behind his eyes, followed by his awareness expanding beyond his physical body. Suddenly, he could sense every electronic device in the facility. He could feel the quantum fluctuations in the metal walls around him. The alien technology that had seemed so mysterious before now made perfect sense. Kim Diane gasped as knowledge flooded her mind. She could see the mathematical equations that controlled matter at the subatomic level. Her hands moved across the alien controls without conscious thought, understanding their function as if she had designed them herself. Jiwon discovered she could hear the thoughts of her teammates, feel their emotions as if they were her own. More than that, she could sense other humans across the galaxy, their minds suddenly connected by invisible threads of quantum energy. The facility's AI continued its work, broadcasting the awakening signal to resistance cells throughout human space. On Titan Base, Commander Osuyan felt power surge through her body as she learned to manipulate matter with her thoughts. The metal wall in front of her began to bend and reshape according to her will. On Proxima Station, Yoon Taehyung watched in amazement as his team began moving objects without touching them, their enhanced minds directly controlling the quantum forces that held atoms together. At the research facility on Glisa, Dr. Choi Min-jae made an incredible discovery. She could communicate instantly with humans light years away without any technology at all. Their minds were connecting through quantum entanglement, creating a network that spanned the entire galaxy, but their awakening came at a terrible cost. Throughout Union space, monitoring systems detected the quantum energy surges coming from human populations. Fleet Admiral Vextar, Supreme Commander of Union forces, watched the readings with growing alarm. "Sir, the humans are exhibiting abilities beyond our containment protocols," reported his tactical officer. "Their quantum signature is off the charts." Vextar's forearms clicked nervously as he studied the data. The Union had harvested genetic material from hundreds of species over the millennia, but they had never seen anything like this. Humans weren't just adapting to Union technology, they were transcending it. "Issue immediate termination orders for all human populations," he commanded. "Project Clean Slate is now our highest priority. We cannot allow this species to fully awaken." Back on Harvesting Station Alpha, the newly awakened humans fought their way through Union security forces. With abilities that seemed impossible, Minho could predict enemy movements before they happened. Kim Daeun could phase through solid walls by adjusting her molecular density. Jiwon could disable alien weapons just by thinking about them. They rescued every human they could find. But the damage was already done. The Union now knew that humanity was becoming something beyond their control. Across the galaxy, Union fleets began mobilizing for the complete extinction of the human race. But humanity was no longer the weak, scattered species the Union had been slowly harvesting. They were awakening to powers that evolution had hidden in their genes for millions of years, powers that the Union had accidentally activated by trying to exploit them. As rescue ships carried the freed humans away from the facility, Dr. Choi's voice reached every human mind in the galaxy through their quantum connection. "They tried to bury us," she said, "but they didn't know we were seeds. And now we're growing into something they never imagined possible." The galaxy's attempt to destroy humanity had instead given birth to their greatest threat. The awakening had begun, and there was no stopping it now. 6 months after the awakening began, the first Union battle fleet learned why their ancestors had once feared a young species called humanity. Commander Osuyan stood on the bridge of a ship that had once been a simple cargo hauler. Now it hummed with quantum energy as her enhanced mind connected directly to its systems. Around her, dozens of similar vessels prepared for battle against a Union fleet that outnumbered them 10-1. The ships looked like junk held together, with spare parts and hope. But appearances were deceiving. Each vessel now carried human crews whose awakened abilities turned simple technology into something far more dangerous. "Incoming message from Admiral Vextar," reported Han Ji-hoon from his station. "Put him through," Suyan said calmly. The alien's four-armed form appeared on their main screen, his insect-like face twisted with anger. "Surrender now, humans, and your deaths will be quick. Continue this rebellion and we will hunt down every last one of your kind." Suyun smiled, and something in that expression would have terrified the Admiral if he understood human psychology. "Admiral, let me teach you something about my species. We don't know how to surrender. We only know how to win." The battle that followed would be remembered throughout galactic history as the moment everything changed. Human ships moved in ways that defied physics. They phased through Union energy shields like they weren't there. They predicted enemy attack patterns and moved to counter them before the attacks were even launched. Most impossibly, they coordinated perfectly across vast distances without any detectable communication. On the bridge of her ship, Suyun felt the thoughts and intentions of every human pilot in the fleet. They moved as one mind controlling dozens of bodies, their actions perfectly synchronized through quantum connections that Union technology couldn't detect or jam. Captain Lee Minho, commanding a strike force near Kepler Prime, watched Union forces crumble as something even more incredible happened. The alien species that the Union controlled were beginning to fight back. For the first time in galactic history, the truth about Union methods was being broadcast on every frequency, in every language. Humanity had learned the Union's darkest secret. They had done this before, many times over thousands of years. The proud Zephyrian warrior culture extinct for 2 centuries. The brilliant Altarian engineers vanished after their integration. The peaceful Centauri farmers disappeared within a single generation. Dozens of species had been absorbed, harvested, and eliminated using the exact same methods now being used against humanity. But this time was different. This time one species had fought back successfully and was sharing the truth with everyone. On the forest world of Theta Prime, the lizard-like Thetari received human broadcasts in their own ancient language. Elder Sistak remembered stories his grandmother had told about the time before the Union came, when his people had been free to choose their own path. "The Warmbloods speak truth," he hissed to his council. "The Sky Tyrants took our eggs, our younglings, our future, but they left us alive to serve, no more." Within hours, Thetari workers began sabotaging Union facilities across their homeworld. Their natural ability to blend with their environment made them perfect guerrilla fighters. On the crystal worlds of the Velnathi Collective, the telepathic, crystal beings shared human memories through their quantum consciousness network. They felt the pain of separation, the horror of slow extinction, the rage of a species fighting for survival. The Velnathi had been the Union's most valuable servants, because their natural telepathy made them perfect administrators. Now that same telepathy became their weapon as they coordinated uprisings across dozens of worlds simultaneously. Lieutenant Park Jiwon, leading a rescue mission on Colony Beta 9, watched in amazement as a group of Altarian survivors emerged from hiding. The Union had reported their species extinct 50 years ago, but some had survived in the deep caverns of their homeworld. "We have waited," their leader spoke in broken human language. "Waited for the Firebringers to come. Our ancestors' machines still work. We will fight." Dr. Choi Min-jae, coordinating intelligence from her hidden base, made a discovery that changed everything. The Union leadership wasn't what they claimed to be. Deep in their most secure archives, she found the truth that would shatter their empire. "Everyone needs to hear this," she broadcast to human minds across the galaxy. The Union rulers aren't an advanced species that evolved beyond physical form. They're the consciousness of the first species the Union ever absorbed. They've been trapped for thousands of years, forced to repeat the same cycle of conquest and absorption over and over again. The revelation sent shockwaves through every species under Union control. Their masters weren't gods or evolved beings. They were victims just like everyone else, trapped in a system that consumed civilizations to sustain itself. Engineer Kim Deun, working with salvaged Union technology, made another breakthrough. "I can trace the quantum signatures of the trapped consciousness. They're being held in a massive facility on Nexus Prime, the Union capital world." Commander Suyun felt the collective determination of humanity focus like a laser beam. "Then, that's where we end this," not just for us but for everyone. As Union fleets burned in space and their controlled species rose in rebellion, humanity's message spread across the stars. We were buried in darkness, but darkness only made us stronger. We rise not just for ourselves, but for every species that was silenced before us. The galaxy was awakening from thousands of years of sleep, and humanity was leading the way toward a dawn that would shine on every world that had ever dreamed of freedom. The final battle began not with weapons or ships, but with a single voice that reached every conscious mind in the galaxy. Dr. Choi Min-jae sat in her hidden laboratory, her enhanced abilities allowing her thoughts to travel instantly across billions of light years. When she spoke, every living being in Union space heard her words in their own language, felt her emotions as if they were their own. "My name is Dr. Choi Min-jae of the Human Liberation Front," she began. "What I am about to tell, you will change everything you believe about the Galactic Union." On the Union capital world of Nexus Prime, Supreme Chancellor Morden watched his empire begin to crumble in real time. Across 1,000 worlds, the truth humanity had discovered spread like wildfire through the quantum networks that connected all intelligent life. The Union leadership weren't the evolved beings they pretended to be. They were the trapped consciousness of the Keth Mori, the first species the Union had ever absorbed 3,000 years ago. For millennia, these ancient souls had been forced to orchestrate the destruction of other civilizations to keep their own tortured existence going. "Please," whispered a voice that came from the deepest levels of Nexus Prime, speaking in a language older than recorded history. "Please end our suffering. We never wanted this. We were forced to become monsters to survive." Captain Lee Min-ho led the assault fleet toward the capital world, his ship cutting through Union defenses like they were made of paper. Behind him flew hundreds of vessels crewed by awakened humans and their new alien allies. The Thatari had contributed their stealth technology. The Velnathi provided their telepathic coordination. The surviving Altarians had rebuilt their ancient war machines. Lieutenant Park Ji-won, now serving as Min-ho's tactical officer, watched the planet's defensive systems fail one by one. "Sir, their quantum shields are dropping. It's like they're letting us through. The trapped consciousness is helping us," Min-ho realized. "They want to be free as much as we do." On the planet's surface, Commander Oh Soo-yeon led a strike team through the capital city's streets. Her enhanced abilities allowed her to phase through walls and reshape matter with her thoughts. But she wasn't alone. Around her, human soldiers and alien rebels worked together with perfect coordination. Engineer Kim Daeun had spent weeks studying the schematics of Nexus Prime's central core. The facility where the Kethemori consciousness was imprisoned lay deep beneath the planet's surface, protected by technology that had been ancient when humanity first looked up at the stars. "The quantum matrix holding them is massive," she explained as they descended through layer after layer of security. "If we disrupt it wrong, we could kill billions of minds at once. And if we don't disrupt it at all, the cycle continues forever," replied Soo-yeon. "How many more species will be absorbed if we fail?" They reached the central chamber as Union forces made their last, desperate attempt to stop them. But the resistance was weak, confused. Many Union soldiers had learned the truth and no longer knew what they were fighting for. The chamber itself was beyond anything they had imagined. A sphere of pure energy a kilometer wide, filled with swirling patterns of light that represented the consciousness of an entire civilization. For 3,000 years, the Kethmori had been trapped inside, forced to use their advanced mental abilities to control the Union's expansion across the galaxy. "We can hear you," the ancient voices whispered as the humans approached. "We have waited so long for someone strong enough to break our chains." Soo-yeon reached out with her enhanced consciousness and touched the quantum matrix. Immediately she felt the agony of millennia, the guilt of forced complicity in genocide, the desperate hope for release that had kept the Kethmori sane through endless centuries of horror. "You're not our enemies," she said gently. "You're victims, just like everyone else." Working together, the human team began carefully dismantling the quantum prison. As each layer of control fell away, Union systems across the galaxy began shutting down. The network that had controlled billions of lives for thousands of years was finally breaking apart. But instead of chaos, something beautiful happened. Species after species declared their independence from Union control, but they didn't fragment into warring factions. The shared experience of oppression had taught them the value of cooperation. They began forming a new alliance based on mutual aid instead of domination. The Thetari offered their knowledge of sustainable farming to worlds damaged by Union strip mining. The Velnathi used their telepathic abilities to help traumatized populations heal from centuries of mental conditioning. The Altarians began rebuilding the infrastructure that had been destroyed during Union conquest. And humanity, the species that had refused to accept extinction, became the coordinators of galactic reconstruction. On Earth, humanity's ancestral home, the first free elections in 50 years were held. But by then, humans had scattered across the stars as teachers, healers, and guides, helping other species reclaim their lost heritage. The Kethmori consciousness, finally free after 3 millennia of imprisonment, chose not to return to physical form. Instead, they became advisors and counselors, sharing their hard-won wisdom about the dangers of unchecked power. Years later, as the new Galactic Liberation Alliance grew stronger and more species joined their confederation of equals, Dr. Choi, Minjae stood on the observation deck of humanity's first diplomatic vessel and looked out at the stars. The galaxy had tried to bury humanity in the darkness between worlds. Instead, they had planted seeds that grew into a fire bright enough to illuminate every corner of the void. And in that fire, all the galaxy's children had finally found their way home. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And humanity, the species that never learned to surrender, had taught the galaxy that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemies, but from freeing them from the chains that made them enemies in the first place.